Um, the feedback had been to try and go a little bit more into the inner dimensions, which was on page 86 and page 87, which is more Kabbalistic, and we kind of breeze through it at some level. So if you want to, we'd go into it a little bit more now.
Mhm.
Give it a shot.
Sure.
So in general, obviously we're dealing with Sarat, with this miraculous skin affliction, which is something we don't understand. And even in a purely Talmudic sense, it's really one of the most difficult areas of Jewish law to master because it's very detailed and it's nothing we've ever seen. So a lot of it is just purely memory. But it does take up it's now pretty much most of two Torah portions now, and that we're in the beginning of the first, and it's certainly a very very much a part of Torah. So I wanted to come into it a little bit from this angle. I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to look at something in the Talmud here. This is in the Talmud, and there's a kind of a longer story which is beyond us about one of the, all anybody who mentioned the Talmud is a Talmudic greats, but the Rabbi, or Rabbi Ben Nachmani, his full name, Rabbi the son of Nachmani, was a very, very tremendous figure, highly devout, a saintly person, and a great Talmudic scholar and teacher of some of the greats. So if you go here, this is about Rabbi Bar Nachmani as he's about to die. This is part of a larger story. But here he's sitting on the stump of a palm tree studying alone. At that moment, where Torah tells us, the Talmud tells us, the sages in the heavenly academy. So there's this idea, which is it's called Mesifta Derakia in Aramaic. It's not an unknown phrase in the Talmud, that there is this idea within the soul condition of the soul studying Torah in paradise. It's called a heavenly academy. Mesifta, even today, it's called, that's a high school usually, is a Mesifta, but Mesifta is not only that age, it's Mesifta is, for some reason, it has become more, we've become accustomed more to doing, calling that a Mesifta, a high school, and then the higher one is called a yeshiva gadol, which is Hebrew. Mesifta is Aramaic, but in Talmudic times and the Gaonic times, a Mesifta could be any age. It was an academy, and this is called Mesifta Dirakia. Rakia means of the firmament of the heavens, the heavenly academy. They were disagreeing with regard to a halacha of leprosy. Again, here, so here they're using the translation of leprosy, which we know it's not leprosy, but they mean of tzaras. In general, a leprous spot includes two signs of impurity: a bright white spot and a white hair. There's something that we studied already in the Torah, in the Torah language, is called the baheret, which is a bright white spot. It's a spot like snow, and there's also needs to be a white hair coming out. Now, the basic halacha is that if the snow white leprous sore preceded the white hair, in other words, now there's this lesion on the skin, which is now it has turned not just white but snow white. There's no circulation there, and then again the sequence is important. A white hair grows, then the afflicted person is ritually impure. But if the sequence was reversed, if someone's in the shower and they look and they see that a white hair is growing out of their skin, and that's not normal for them, okay, and then later on or tomorrow they see that actually a white lesion, a snow white lesion developed, that's not tzaras, and the person is pure, he or she is pure. So the Gemara goes further and says the heavenly debate concerning the case of uncertainty as to which came first, the spot or the hair. person hasn't they haven't looked at themselves, that area in their body, they haven't showered in a couple of days, and now they look and say it's just there. They're both there. Which came first? How can I know? Last time I remember looking, there was nothing there. So what happened? Again, this is in the Talmudic language, and there's certainly some metaphor here. So in the case of uncertainty, it's what came first, the spot of the hair. The Holy One, blessed be. And that's a common a phrase for Hashem, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And I want to talk a bit about that a little bit later. Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh means the Holy One. Baruch means blessed, like they say Baruch Atah. And who is him? So the Holy One, blessed be, mean God, says the individual is pure. But every other member of the Heavenly Academy says he's impure. So the souls, the rabbinic souls, are arguing with God. God says the law is pure, and the souls say, yeah, but you know something, you gave the Torah to us, and even though we're not in bodies anymore, we're still human souls, and we have the right to decide on our own, and we say it's impure. So they said, who can arbitrate in this dispute? Who's gonna who's gonna stick their head into that one? They agreed that Rabbi Menachmeni should arbitrate. Rabbi Menachmeni, who's still alive, and he's this great rabbi. As Rabbi Menachmeni once said, "I am preeminent in the halachot of leprosy, of tzaras, and I am preeminent in the halachot of ritual impurity imparted by tense." That he said about himself that with those people alive. I'm sure he said it with the greatest of humility. He said, I looking around me, I'm the one who knows the best. There's here, I mean, this is not on point, but just to say that they needed him up there. That means it's time for him to die anyway. They sent a messenger from heaven after him to take a soul to Heavenly Academy. The angel of death was unable to approach Rabbi Menachmeni as his mouth did not cease from the Torah study. He was totally connected to God. He's constantly saying words of Torah. He's not open to death, to the disconnect of death. So in the meantime, a wind blew and howled between the branches. Rabbi Menachmeni thought that the noise was due to an infantry battalion about to capture him. He said, "Let that man, me, die and not be given over to the hands of the government." Since he said that, he opened himself up to death, and angel of death was able to take his soul. As he was dying, he said in response to the dispute in heaven, "It is pure, it is pure." And a divine voice emerged from heaven and said, "Happy are you, Rabbi Menachmeni, as your body is pure and your soul left you with the word pure." Okay, so it's a funky story. We can it's plenty to talk about there, but what the Gemara is telling us is that Rabbi Menachmeni he was preeminent in these very complicated laws, and with a debate in the heavens between the Holy One, blessed is He, Hashem, and the souls in the Heavenly Academy, where Hashem said it was pure and they said not, and he went with the divine opinion, said pure, and the rest of it I read just because it's interesting, the idea that he left, his soul passed with him saying the word pure. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, many questions, but I'll try to. Yeah. So first, just the whole concept, like if you're constantly connecting with Torah, like you can't die during those moments. That's one thing. So
yes,
I don't know if that's a. I don't know if you want to do that.
There's so much to talk about here. Yeah, that is what the Talmud does seem to be positing, that while we're connected to Hashem, that's not possible. At the same time, you'd say, I don't, it's people very connected consistently. They've been able to. They have passed on. I don't know what it means actually in our functionally in our condition, but certainly the Talmudic idea, and it's not just in this story. Actually, it happens elsewhere also. At least one more time. The idea is that a person who's totally death is really seen as a distortion of the divine reality. And we've discussed this a few times because even humans are supposed to be eternal, because live forever, because we have souls, and the soul should animate the bodies forever, and the souls are godly, God's forever. So the whole idea of death, right? The Kohen, representing God, can't deal with death because it's all a distortion of divine reality. That distortion can't be allowed when we're clear in connection with the divine reality. Now, it's not. I don't know if it's a hard and fast rule. I don't know if anyone ever tried to disprove it, but the idea definitely comes up several times in time.
Okay. I mean, and or perhaps it's within a shorter time period, not like for a month, but maybe like hours or, but no, the concept's nice, but okay. But my bigger question was that, did he know which side the God and the souls were on? And what if he had chosen the side of the souls? Like, I mean, what was he basing? I mean, regardless of whether the person, clearly the person was pure, but if the person hadn't been, what the dynamic could have changed in this? Yeah.
I hope none, because the point was about this, a legal decision, not about what God wants. And I think that in our July recently it came up, but there is a very famous story of the Talmud about a debate, nothing to do with this particular rabbi, but another rabbi, to Rabbi Elazar Hurkanis, a great rabbi who was debating with other rabbis, and he was very certain about his opinion, and they brought different he brought
right. This was the oven thing in the walls, that one.
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yeah, okay.
And so he's bringing these different miraculous things, and then the divine voice comes and says the law is according to him, and the rabbis say, you're not this. The Torah says that the Torah was given to humans, and we're going to decide according to our logic, not according to some divine voice. And that was, and God was happy with that. So it was that languages, my children have vanquished me. My children have vanquished me. Obviously, it's the idea that this is, we're not. The lesson in it, none of us are interfacing with the divine exactly, but the lesson is that law should be about law, and if we truly respect God, we should respect that what God wants is that the law be implemented, and for us to think that what God would want is to override it, that's generally Torah thinking.
Okay, right? And thank you for confirming that. And my third question for now is that, so it's, they said having the word pure on your lips as he passed, which seems like a nice term and word, but wouldn't it be better to have like Hashem's name, or saying the Shema or things like that?
Well, usually we say the Shema with people. Exactly, we say the Shema with people. I don't tell them to say pure, but I think what this, because of this incident, he happened to be saying the term pure. He was saying and the Torah decision. And I think that what the story is telling us is that there's a special blessing when the soul passes with in the sense of the purity, in a context of purity. Yesterday, the reason that all the women went in for Shabbos was because of the yard site of the Rebbe's wife, the Rebbetzin, Mushka, and so yesterday was her actual yard site, and that when she passed away, she was in a hospital, and she was with a woman. Maybe some of you know my friend Yossi Sternberg, but his mother, Esther Sternberg, was with the Rebbetzin, actually with her when she passed away. She was very close to the Rebbetzin. And what happened was that the Rebbetzin asked for a glass of water, and because they didn't think it was the last moments. And she made a bracha, and she drank, and then she died. She passed on. So it was with, so to speak, with the bracha on her lips, and it was something that is seen as there's a beauty to that, to being in that rhythm as the soul passes on.
Okay, so the pure, I was thinking it was that saying that he was totally pure, but you're saying it's just more generally all souls have a purity aspect.
For sure. Definitely.
Very nice.
Okay, so that's as far as that Talmudic story goes. Now to try to get into what is this tzarat deal spiritually, and hopefully we'll have time to get back to that Talmudic story. So I looked online for the Zohar in English. I couldn't find it. I just found synopses, whatever. So I'll read to you a piece from the Zohar. The Zohar is the basic textbook of mysticism. I'm not suggesting that it be read. It's very condensed and it's very easy to misunderstand. So just one little piece on this Torah portion we're studying, and it says, Rabbi Yitzchak said, when there is the lesion of tzaras, that lesion represents a strong negativity in the world. Tzaras means that something is closed off. Now, closed off even in the Chumash we use, or in most, I'm putting pause on this. In almost every edition of the Chumash, used to be every edition, but every Jewish edition, now it's not necessarily every edition, there is the scripture, and it's always been printed together with an Aramaic translation known as Onkelos, that dates back to first century, or second century. And in the Onkelos, the Aramaic translation translates an affliction as giru. If anybody knows Hebrew, close the door, it's zgor at the dalet. It's zgor. It's even in modern Hebrew today. It means to close, and it refers to this affliction as a closing off. It's a closing off of circulation. We're talking about closing off of more. So here it says here in the Zohar, it doesn't say that it's a Onkelos, but that's brought elsewhere, and it's in the Chumash as we look at even on the page we have. It's a closing off, as though you were saying that the heavenly light is being closed off. It's closing off the heavenly good that is not allowed to descend into our condition, into our world. So when it says in the verse, when this happens to a person, it means, a regular person, and that person is brought to a Kohen, a human Kohen, in order for the Kohen to, who has the power to and will affect an opening of this closing, and will light the candles. And that's kind of the cryptic Zohar language, that through the Kohen's declaring purity, blessings will come from above to below, and the affliction will disappear, and the light of mercy will rest upon all. And that is why the Torah says the person should be brought to the Kohen. Okay, so there is this idea that again we find it in Onkelos also, that the closing off the tzaras, because I don't want to call it leprosy, but the tzaras lesion, there's a closing off of blood circulation. That's why it's white. But the idea is that there's a closing off somewhere within of our blessing, within our system, that there's a stoppage, and that's what's being reflected in the lesion. And the idea of the lesion being healed is healing that stoppage within the person, within us. So I want to look a little bit let me do share screen again, see if I can get this. So this is on Chabad.org. We've probably looked at this other times. This is in looking at what we call 10 Sefirot. And the 10 Sefirot here are actually 11. And I'll explain that. So the 10 Sefirot, in the way we're looking at it, is we're looking at it, see there's a human being there. And the way it's seen is that Keter, which means a crown, that represents more the subconscious or the not fully conscious. Could be our drives. And Chochmah here is these three, Chochmah, Bina, Dat, which is where Chabad gets its acronym from, Chochmah, Bina, Dat. Those three are the beginnings of the conscious process of our conscious functioning, and Chochmah is what receives, so to speak, from the subconscious and is developed in Bina, and with that, when something really matters, we bring it down. Forget about this Malchut here, because in the normal function that Malchut would be down at the very bottom. So that's I couldn't find in a quick look online, I couldn't find a diagram that it would work totally for us. So just let's put that Malchut to the side, or all the way to the bottom. So these Chochmah Bina Dat are all, and maybe if I get a chance, I'll explain to you why they put it up there, even though that's not normative. Are all intellectual functions. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, kindness, strength, and Tiferet means beauty. I'll explain that a little bit more. Or mercy, those are more emotive, and Hod Yisod, that's Hod Yisod. Those are the more emotive feelings that bring us to action, like tenacity or drive. I feel something, but now I want to do it. So think about it this way. You wanted to ask something, Debbie?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually seen it overlaid on a human body, which is interesting because I know we've talked about those upper ones being, above the intellect and emotion, but seeing it like the victory kind of on the arms makes sense because you need to fight often for victory and I guess gather your splendor. I'm curious if you're willing to say exactly what Yesod really means and foundation. If it's is it just kind of like
Yesod is actually Yesod the foundation, but there's a piece of Zohar that is recited in at least in many communities, Svarda communities, Hasidic communities, every Friday night. And it's all in Aramaic, and in this idea of placing the Sefirot within the human is a fundamentally Kabbalistic idea. It's not new at all, and there the language is Yesod. The language is Os Bris Kodesh. That's the sign of the holy Bris. So that's kind of what you were asking. But the idea is it's the function of connection. Foundation. Yesod means a foundation. What does it mean here? I think a more accurate English translation would be bonding. So again, this is a long conversation, but let's say just because you brought it up, me as well, and we may not get to too much Tetzeras today, but let's say it strikes me. I'm sitting here and it strikes me that there's someone who's my uncle in Brazil, who I haven't spoken to in quite a while, and I really like him. When I get to see him, but I really haven't. So I decided I'm going to reach out for him. So the thought hits me, Chochmah. I'm sitting in my office. So, I haven't spoken to Uncle Hirschleib. Now, I got some busy things to do. I'm not sure I'm going to do it, but that germ I developed, I say, something, I can work this out, and he could use it, and he's in a wheelchair right now. So I think it through. And then with that, I say, this is something I really have to do. It's, because the engine of action is going to be emotion, not intellect. We can know a lot of things intellectually, but when we act is when it matters to us. It touches us emotionally. So that is really the key to emotions, which is really the engine of action. So if you look here a second, Malchut, where do they put that? By the mouth. Okay, because that's the action would be. So take it away, because it's really obstructs a little bit. Chochmah Bina Das, that's the way I'm thinking. It translates into my feeling, right? So now I'm thinking, I'm feeling how I think about him. I'm remembering my relationship with him. I'm thinking how he's feeling now. But now he's been in a wheelchair, and then, truth is, I don't even have his number, because I have it somewhere, but I have his WhatsApp. I could call him on WhatsApp. So now I get here. So here in this stage, I'm feeling, and I want to do it, but not everything I feel do I actually act upon. It's yes, it would be great. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, or maybe I want to do it, but there's a reason that I think maybe it's not such a good idea. It's getting closer to action, but and that's a chod, which are, I would say, more as tenacity, and hod is more like a humility. In other words, surrendering to the idea and just getting it done. These are where the action. And these actually, they tend to be, they put them on, they didn't mean to put them on the hands, they're actually on the legs. Because the legs is what gets us going. They're action. It's emotional, but it's emotional that feeds action. So the hands would be, what are called hands are the chesed and gevura. That's a chenhod, are like legs, thighs. But then Yesod, so now I decide I'm going to call. Now I got to gather myself together, because, sometimes you got to formulate what you're going to say before you actually say it. And again, I haven't spoken to my uncle probably a year since I've seen him. So, and I just want to think it through. Yesod is, again, it's in my psyche. I haven't said anything yet, but now I'm preparing to connect, and I'm formulating what it is that I'm gonna say. And Malchut, which would be down here at the bottom in the normal structure, is that in that section we say Friday night. So that's considered the mouth. What does it mean? It means action. I actually did it. I spoke. The world doesn't know what's going on inside of me. It's either through me speaking or writing or doing, but it's really it's the expression. Now I'm touching the world. That's malchut, making a difference in the world. It's called kingship. It means sovereignty, meaning that I'm now impacting the world. Now the world is changing because I'm doing something. So I'm calling him. So actually calling him would be the malchut. So it's keter is I have this kind of subconscious relationship I have with my uncle, which I don't think about it much. As a matter of fact, I wasn't thinking about it at all today until I was just looking for something subconscious for an example now. But it's there, and if it fell into my mind, into my chokhmah, developed my bina, then I focused on it enough, not just to let it fly away, but that that it mattered. That something I really haven't spoken to him in a while. I'm thinking about it. I'm actually thinking now. I could WhatsApp him, and it creates an emotion, and then the emotion moves further to also within the emotions of I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to look and see. I do have a WhatsApp for him. The timing in Brazil should be fine, and I'm going to do this. And then what am I going to say? So now I'm connecting with him in my brain, but I'm structuring what it is, and given what he's been going through, what does he need to hear? That's my yesod, and then ultimately, then my malchus is it sequentially comes later, which is in the speech. Does that make sense? We okay with that? Because then I'll go further. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. Stop me if it doesn't. Okay. So now let's go back. Right. So now, Chochmah, we said, is really the first peak of the subconscious into our conscious. Like when you're thinking and you have you're wrestling with a problem and you got like an idea hits you, that eureka moment, that lightning bolt, where does it come from? It comes from your subconscious. It didn't come from the ether. But you didn't, a minute ago, you didn't have an answer. And now all of a sudden, hang on, I think I have an answer. And then you develop it with Bina and you got your answer. So Chochmah is the first lightning bolt. It's of the subconscious hitting us. The subconscious, that also means it's the divine, the soul. That's where holiness hits us. So it's a receptor. Chochmah it's us, but it's a receptor for what's really the intangible, and the what's the transcendent, which we may be able to feel from time to time, but we don't have a grasp on it, and it hits us. Faith can come from Keter and show itself in Chochmah. And this is from Chochmah all the way down through Malchut down here. That's the normal functional human psyche that we feel. Keter is more the subconscious and the divine. But Chochmah is, and the language in Job is that Chochmah is found as though it came from nothingness. Chochmah ma'ayin tomotze is the Hebrew. That it's the idea, this inspiration, it's like it came from nothing. Of course it didn't come from nothing, it came from your subconscious, but it feels that way. It comes from a part of us that's not within the conscious, it's a subconscious, and that's can be a very holy part of us. Now, interesting, I think the right way to go here. In the Kabbalistic, I'm really giving not even a Reader's Digest view of this, but I want to be able to give a taste of the Kabbalah of this. The let's call it interdisciplinary function of all of these is very, very critical in Torah thinking. The idea of me having, let's go down here, just unbridled giving without tempering it by thinking that maybe I have to stand back and maybe I can't afford what I'm giving, or maybe I'm being too pushy in giving my goodness. I'm running around, I'm giving someone food every day, and I'm crossing their boundaries. The idea of chesed is powerful. Gevura is powerful. All of these things are powerful, but what we want is them to be not as independent functions and drives within us, but they work more within the cohesive human for a purpose. So Keter, and actually this whole middle thing, it's seen as a balance. Like, what do I want? And what I really want, so therefore it's if let's say I'm going away from my uncle a little bit because it may be a little bit more practical idea. Deep inside, we all want to have relationships. I think that's from my amateur reading of psychology, that is, even though it's a thousands of year old Torah idea that we have this innate need for connection with others. That's why this whole thing is all about how we connect with others, and certainly connecting with special loved ones in our lives. We need that. It's not always conscious that that's what's driving us, but it is a need we have, and therefore sometimes when we're acting, the keter of it is it's about our need for connection, even though that's not what's consciously going on. If something this morning I decide, I want to do something for a loved one. I'm not thinking that about connection, my human need for connection, whatever. I'm just thinking, something. I haven't done something. I want to make this person happy. I'm going to make a kugel. It hits me. I've got the time and the talent to make a kugel. I don't, but let's say I had that. And now I developed the idea and I think about it, and I go and I make it. Now, that all sounds great. The chokhmah part of it is really, that is where that came from my subconscious. It was a germ, and then it developed. And now it's just about me making a kugel. Now, even in that, so I have a drive to make a kugel. But I have to realize that the person doesn't expect a kugel. And just can't just crash their lives with the kugel. So maybe I got to think about, first of all, what kind of kugel do they like? And, it could be a little funny, like I just dropped in with a kugel. I have to temper. If what's really driving me is ultimately my connection with a person, then I can't let my chesed, my giving, just go unfettered. I've got to think about the goal, and if the objective is that I want to show my appreciation for this person, I want to strengthen our bonds. It's not just about giving a kugel. I want to do it in the right context. So the gvura, this part of the left hand, is to hold back a little bit and say, okay, so how's the right way to do this? And the tiferet, the scene is bringing balance. Just make sure that you keep on objective, and obviously you give it, and you have the drive to give it, and it's actually given. Now, one of the things that we were talking about here is, I just want to, let's go look on 86, what we read last week. We're going to go back to this in a second, but it says, Tzara does not result from any natural physiological condition. When divine providence agrees that this condition appear in a person, the resulting lesion is produced by limiting the circulation of blood in the air, which then turns white. This obstruction is in turn the physical manifestation of its corresponding spiritual antecedent, the obstruction of the flow of divine consciousness from chokhmah to bina. The saying is like this: chokhmah, that the glow I had with the thought, is the most conscious connection I have to my deeper drive. And when I take the idea, and now the idea, this initial glow of, here's a thought, that's faded. It's possible for that to fade. Now I get into I'm all wrapped up in the kugel, and I'm buying the ingredients, and I'm packaging, and that's all wonderful. But then it becomes sometimes more about me and what I want to do. Keeping the bina, making sure that there's a flow from chokhmah to bina, which means really from keter, which is what peeked in through chokhmah, means that there's certain there is the, I'm going to say humility, but that on task of saying it's that there's a purpose in this all, and connecting more, not only with what I'm consciously focusing on now, but more about the subconscious drive. That we call humility, because then it's not just about what I'm thinking now. In the Torah world, we say that a person, obviously, Bina is about comprehension and contemplation. So most of the time, if someone is studying all day in an academy and they're studying Talmud all day, they're spending their time in the sphere of Bina. But it's very possible for someone to study all day about the laws, the Torah banking laws, and they're studying Torah. It's absolutely Torah, and they're excelling at it. And they haven't thought about God at all. They're thinking about money. They're thinking about laws. They're thinking about halacha. They're thinking about Maimonides. They're thinking about the Talmud. Thinking about this rabbi. They're thinking about the Rashi, but they're not thinking about God. The idea of chokhmah and keter and having that in is that there is the germ of why of a truly holy approach to Torah is that I want to connect with God. Now, maybe what I'm feeling is not so much that. Maybe I enjoy it, or this is my job, or this helps me be a good Jew. Where we want to go with this, and what is truly our soul subconscious, is that we want to connect with God, and the premier way of connecting with God is through Torah. So that's one of the reasons prayer is suggested as before study, because prayer is we have a thirst for God. We have a thirst for connection with God and our soul, and we're limited. How do I connect with God? And that is a drive, and that is more of a chachma function, where I am now surrendered to that I want to allow God in my life. I'm trying to open the doors of my heart and my soul to allow God into my life. And now I found a perfect way. I went to Bina. I went to studying, but that's a different Bina. That's studying those laws of banking are fulfilling a purpose. The purpose is through that I'm bringing divine wisdom into my life, into my soul, and I'm connecting. And it happens to be about banking. But the details and even the great intellect are going to take something of a back seat to the fundamental of it, which is it's about relationship. And it's certainly, I think, I only live in one skin, but it's the instinct would be, then we go straight to the study. I want to understand this. It's interesting. And I want to know more. I want to know how to live. And maybe even it's about it's Torah that's not about something in my life. It's about Tzaraat, but it's interesting insights. But it's the idea of opening ourselves up to this idea that it's about God and it's about connection with God. That really means these two. So when he's saying here that there's yes,
is where the disconnect comes in and the ego forms when there's not that balance between the chokmah and the binya.
That's exactly the case. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about. And that's it's just a common thing because we're humans. And if we're accomplishing something and we're studying something and we're understanding something, it's beautiful, and the self-satisfaction it goes together. So the point is that we want to maintain the circulation between the chokhmah and the bina, that we're touching base regularly. But why am I doing all this? It's not because I want to be a banker, and it's not only because I find it interesting. It's because I'm really doing this to connect with God. So that's exactly the point here. So in here, so I hope I answered your question, Lori, because it is yes.
You did. Thank you so much.
The instruction of the flow from divine consciousness from Chachma to Bina. This is alluded to by the fact that one of the names of God associated with Bina is the numerical value. I'm not going to get into this now. Progressive iteration of this name, the numerical value of the word for blood. But let's go back to this blockage. The psychological equivalent of this blockage between Chachma and Bina occurs when we contemplate, as we should, God's transcendence, and how he manifests himself in creation. But our heightened awareness of God's presence does not cause us to feel nullified within that presence. Okay, so we don't have that much time, but I want to say we have the capacity to, there's stuff, you look outside, you see nature, you see a squirrel, maybe you see things in your life, and you can say, God is with me. That's it's appreciable. You can get your arms around that, so to speak. Then you may think, and we can contemplate, well, God is the infinite. I'm seeing godliness through finite channels. The tree, the animals, my health. But God is so much larger. How do you, I can't get my mind around an infinite because I have a finite mind. But I can have an appreciation that God is just is immeasurable and non-composite. And we're part of God, and that godliness, that infinite God, is here with me in the universe, and my soul, your souls, are all part of that infinite. And can I actually get my arms around it? No, it's an infinite, but I can get a whisper of the beauty of it, a whisper. So in the Kabbalistic language, there's God as we can appreciate the divine within the context of life. That's called Memali Kol Ha'olam, that's God fills all worlds. But then there's a part of God which, even if I can sense it, is beyond me, and that's what he says God surrounds all worlds. So it doesn't mean spatially, but it's just like something that's beyond me. It's around. Filling the world means it's here. It's filling me. It's filling my heart. Filling my understanding. Surround means it's beyond me, but it's not something I can't connect with, but I can only connect with it in a limited way because it's beyond me. It's more transcendent, but I can get a whisper of it. So in that sense, the Keter represents, it's like in our subconscious. We can't totally get our arms around our subconscious, so you get a whisper of it. And in the soul of it, that's where the godliness, the more intense godliness resonates. And it shows itself in the Chokhmah. Chokhmah, this from Chokhmah down, it's all what I would say in the God model, Memali Kol Ha'olam, it fills it because I can understand my intellectual processes, I can understand my emotions, I can understand my functions. I can get my mind around it, I can get my arms around it, but my subconscious I can't. And connecting these two is very much our objective, to try to keep our a connection with what's beyond us, and a wonder for what's beyond us, and allow that to also impact our feelings. That it's not only what I can appreciate about God that gives me feelings. It's a beautiful day, and I can pay my bills, and I can see and walk or whatever. That's all appreciable, and it's very important to focus on those things. But then there's so much more than that, and I'm lucky to be in God's world and be connected to God, and then be able to do a divine mitzvah from a God who's infinite. I can't even appreciate. So, and that's what he's saying here. I mean, that's the psychological equivalent of this blockage between Chokhmah and Bina occurs when we contemplate, as we should, God's transcendence and how he manifests himself in creation. But our heightened awareness of God's presence does not cause us to feel nullified within that presence. But the Keter and the Chokhmah, that there's a part of us that can really surrender and open itself up. Chokhmah is part of our function, but it's a little elusive. It's that part of you that feels the lightning bolt, but the lightning bolt is just, it's only momentarily. That where that inspiration peaks into the consciousness is, you don't actually have your mind around it, your arms around it. You have your arms around what you contemplate and you understand, but this is a peak of the subconscious. So while I feel it, and then that germ can then be brought into being, but it's only a germ. It's only a lightning bolt. It's which is in the sense that it's quick, but it is where we can connect with higher, and we do. That chachma part of us does connect with higher. Now the question is, do we allow it to flow to the bina? Are we conscious of it? Do we feel it? And are we going to bring it to a contemplation where that merely, and now I'm sitting there, I can actually feel something from it. And that's what we're saying, is that there's a block, there's a blockage, there's a lack of circulation, so to speak, from here, the Keset Chochmah to the Bina. And that's where the tsaras lesion comes from. You know, this has been a, I don't know how you guys take it. Let me know how you think of that. I mean, we could potentially continue with this, or we could just move on next week, because there's just more to say, and I'm not going to be able to shift to the next leg of this right now. But again, I'm up for anything, but it's, know where you want to go with it.
So
I like it.
I like it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Someone else speaking.
No, Roberta, go ahead. Sorry.
No, so I like it. And one of the things that I was going to ask you about is that the commentary seems to suggest a lot about Lashon Hara as being a precipitating cause for tsarat, tsaras. However, it sounds to me like many other things, in fact, almost more other things would be responsible for this blockage, according to what you said.
Yep.
So tsarat, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's a very good point. The Gemara actually says a bunch of different things that could bring to tsarat. The most famous then has become about Lashon Hara. But if, as we explore it, I think be able to see that there's a connection between even what I just said and Lashon Hara. But that will unfold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other question I had, and this is going back to the Rebbitzin.
Yeah.
So I've heard that story. In fact, that story is what got me saying blessings for food. When I heard that, I actually was so inspired by it that I started getting to know the blessings, etc. One of the things I wanted to ask about that is, so did she ever drink the water after making the blessing?
That's a great question. I knew the answer at one point, and I'll ask. I'm going to speak to Yossi just about every day. I'll ask him to make sure. I'll get back to you on that. There's an answer in my mind, but I haven't. I mean, he's. Yeah, I was in London when she passed away, and Yossi's the one who called me to tell me that she passed away. I'm going to check with him to make sure. Okay, I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay.
But no, I really enjoy these conversations. So
Okay.
I don't want to overrepresent myself, but you know, I just voting for it.
We can try to take it further, unless, I mean, if you can, anybody can send me private notes. Not there's no right answer to this. If it resonates with you, fine. If not, we can work out the different ways, and maybe for different kinds of different people. I just want to. I don't want to take over this class with this Kabbalistic end without buying. All right.
There's bringing it back to me to from the Sephirot to like people and what you do. There's a concept of like when you have resentments, you're blocking the sunshine of the spirit. You know, there's a saying that that's what resentments are, or when you talk ill of other people. So a lot of that relates back because it blocks you from being godly in your behavior. So it keeps you, to me, I can relate it back to what you talked about today.
I think, yeah, I think the verbiage you used is right on target, because that's what we're talking about. It's about, we have this little sun in us, and the question is, are we blocking the light? All right. See you all next week. Let me.
Thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
nice.
Thank you.